Hello, and welcome to Beyond Books, where we talk about books and go beyond. I'm your host. I'm Renee, co-host Raina, and today she is going to get some treats from her special pottery treat jar here. These are little beef and cheddar treats, so they look like this, and I'll give her a few pieces as we go. And what am I here to talk about? Well, I'm here to talk about a Bestie Read that I recently did with my bestie, Becky, from Book Reviews with Becky. She'll also do her review, and we will post them at the same time, so I will put a link to that review below. Now, the book that I'm talking about is The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. This book was published in 2021. It is the third Kristin Hannah book that I've read. I read The Great Alone way back in 2019, long before I had a channel of my own. And I read The Women in 2024, and I did do a full review of that, to which I will put a link in the description as well. I highly recommend both those books, and I can tell you that Kristin Hannah is becoming a favorite author of mine. She mainly writes historical fiction, and that would be the main genre for this book as well. It is historical fiction. Kristin Hannah has written about 25 books or so. Almost all are standalones. There is a 2-book series called Firefly Lane. And this is something that maybe you didn't know, but Kristin Hannah is also a lawyer. She practiced law in the state of Washington before she became a full-time author. So now for this review, there are going to be maybe for some people some very slight spoilers. I'm going to really lay out what the plot is so that I can explain my feelings about it. So I'm going to lay out the structure of the plot, but try not to mention any of the surprises that come along. So I'm going to do that as best I can without putting spoilers in. But if you're very sensitive to them, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. So The Four Winds is about a woman who grew up on the Texas plains. Her name is Elsa. The book opens in 1921, and she's only 25 years old. We get a sense of how Elsa grew up and how rejected and unloved she has always felt. She meets a younger man in her community. His name is Raffaello Martinelli. And they both share an intimate but very naive relationship. She subsequently becomes pregnant, and she marries into his Italian immigrant, very hardworking, farming family. Things are good for a while. The farm is successful, and although her family of origin rejects her, Elsa feels accepted by her in-laws, and she joins in the hard work and adopts the independent spirit of the farming family. Now, the story then jumps a few years ahead to 1934. Elsa and Rafe now have 2 children. Their names are Loretta and Anthony. And things, unfortunately, start to take a turn at that point for the worse. These are the Depression years and the Dust Bowl years in America. There is a years-long drought, lasts several years, and the land which has been used for livestock and crops becomes very dry and unusable. Elsa needs to make a decision to move her and her family, her and her children, actually, west to California, where many of the farmers end up migrating. There's a lot of talk of there being jobs in California. So at this time now, she is alone with her children. Her husband has left, and her in-laws do not want to leave their land. So in California, Elsa finds a whole new challenge. She and her children are just another Okie there. Even though the migrants were from several different states, they were all called Okies. There was a lot of prejudice against them. Much of it was just like the feelings you hear expressed today against immigrants. Things like, sorry, microphone was running out of juice. There was things said about them like they're bringing disease, they're criminals, they're getting free money and benefits from the government, and they're taking our jobs. Well, sometimes they did get sick, of course, mostly because there was no running water in the makeshift camps that they lived in. And they all lived in very close quarters. Now, is that because they wanted to? No, it was because they didn't have any money for anything else. They definitely were not criminals. They were former farmers who lived very independent lives and just wanted to work for a living after so many years of difficulty on their farms. With severe dust storms, their livestock starved, crops dried up, and not enough food to go around ever. They did get some government relief if they wanted it, and many didn't. But it was very little as it was, mostly in the form of food from the federal government. In the story, it talks about a small box of food that they might have gotten, I think, every 2 weeks. Really nothing with much nutrition in it. Things like, flour or maybe some white bread, maybe some dry beans or rice and some coffee, a little bit of soap, things like that. Also, once they were in California for 1 year, they qualified for a type of state relief, which was a very small amount of money. However, by the time Elsa and her children qualified for that, she had already gotten a job picking cotton on a large farm. Her children also needed to pick in order to survive. They couldn't really go to school during the picking season. The school was a makeshift school on the grounds because of the compound, because the people in the town did not want the Okie children going to their school. Now, she was able to live on some credit from the store, the farm's store, where they sold goods at 2 times the markup that they would have been at a grocery store, and where she could not pay in cash. The only thing they would take is her labor, and they would weigh the cotton and take a certain amount off of her credit, depending what was picked. So there was absolutely, no chance to get ahead in any way. And then you went through a longer period of time where you were unable to pick. So it was just a vicious cycle of picking cotton just to survive day to day. So now Elsa and her fellow migrants are in a situation where they have to show a lot of bravery and a lot of grit in order to survive, and they must stick together and help each other. So that's all I'm going to say where there would be really any spoilers, because that's all I'm going to reveal about the plot. However, I would like to talk briefly about what I learned from this book. Now, first, I had never realized how extensive the Dust Bowl damage was, but the drought period in the Great Plains lasted from 1930 to 1936. And it affected the section of the Great Plains of the United States that extended over southeastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, and northeastern New Mexico. I didn't realize that it was so many states. Also, I hadn't realized the resentment and the prejudice against people who migrated west just looking for a job. I didn't know it was so widespread and so strong. And as I said, it is yet another example, and you can find many, of the same old ill feelings we see against people today, with the same kind of tired excuses for it. In fact, at one point, California closed, or at least carefully controlled, their state border in order to slow migration into the state. Now, I'm not saying that some of this wasn't warranted due to the fact that there are limited resources, of course, but I just never knew that such a thing had occurred. The Los Angeles Police Department were involved in patrolling that border, and it was called the Bum Blockade. Like I say, don't believe I ever knew that. So, but here we go. Now we've gone from calling the people who've been through hard times Okies to now calling them bums. So what did I think of the story? Well, this book has 4.6 stars on Amazon. It has 4.3 on Goodreads. So what am I going to give it? I'm going to give it 5 stars. I hardly put this book down over the few days that I spent reading it. The characters are compelling. The descriptions are vivid. The story has a lot of emotion and suspense to it. The whole time I was reading it, I felt this woman's struggle to feed her children. I felt her pride. I felt her independence and her sheer desire to make things better for herself and her family. All the while, I wondered if I could ever have that kind of pure grit to get the job done against all odds and fighting all the time the feeling of being beat down every day by the elements, the backbreaking work, and the scorn of your own fellow man. This is a great work of historical fiction, and I would highly recommend it to just about anyone. I'll definitely read more by Kristin Hannah. So that's my review of this fabulous Bestie Read. Becky, thanks for the Bestie/Buddy Read. I'm glad you did this with me, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think you probably did. So everyone, head on over to Becky's channel and take a look at what she has to say. As always, I am so grateful to every single one of you who watch my channel. Thank you so much. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this review, and please subscribe for more. Come back and watch more. If you have read this book, or if you want to read this book, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a great day.